Welcome, everyone. I want to definitely say thank you to those of you that turned in your work. And I'll have the new zine. I'll start working on it probably sometime this weekend before the weekend starts, and we'll have it ready to be presented in a couple of weeks. I already have it up on our calendar of when the release party will be, but I'll let you guys know on Google Classroom with the little flyer that I'll make and everything of when that'll be. It'll be in February. I think it's the first weekend in February, if I remember right. But we'll have this week with a lesson. Next week I'll have another lesson for you guys, and then we'll be taking a little break for, I think it's like 2 weeks, and then we'll get started again with a new session of Conchas y Café. Also, for this week's homework assignment, my only homework assignment to you guys this week is going to be suggesting title names for our new Conchas y Café zine. So the issue that you guys just submitted to, feel free to start suggesting your title names, and also themes for the next series, because I haven't selected one yet. So figured I'd let you all know now so you can start brainstorming those theme suggestions.
For the writing that we just did for the last session, that's when we're looking for the titles?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so to sort of review, the theme for this last time was characterization. Specifically, I called it creating our people, or creating people, something like that. And the theme itself was characterization. So your, title suggestions hopefully will represent that at least a little bit. So, yeah. All right. So, any questions before we get into our lesson for today? All right. Sounds good. So, this week, I've done this presentation several times before. I think this is going to be the first time that I actually do it recorded. So, this will hopefully be something that we can revisit again in the future with maybe updated information. But, the last time that we had our Conchas y Café series, we ended it with a couple of sessions where I talked about how to start working on creating a budget for ultimately starting a career as an artist, as a writer. And there were a lot of different things that we covered last time. The financial stuff. If you're curious about what all that was, if you didn't catch it, it is up on YouTube now as part of the playlist for the last series of Conchas y Café workshops. But today we're going to be going over some resources that are available to you now as writers, as artists, that you could potentially start taking advantage of. So I did upload the handout. I'm going to start presenting the handout here now. This handout that you see hopefully in front of you right now, it is a handout that I've handed out in the past in the workshops when we used to meet in person, and it has a lot of the same information. I haven't actually updated it yet, but these are all different websites that you can go to now, and a lot of them have actually been updated with some new information for, especially for people that are impacted by COVID-19. If you go to places like Poets and Writers, or the California Arts Council website, for example, they do have information about different resources that are available to people who are currently being impacted by COVID-19 and the closure of, theaters and people that can't do gigs anymore, that type of thing. And so what I'm hoping to do today is actually go to the websites and kind of show you some of the resources that are available to you. The first one that we'll start off with will be contests and writing resources. As you can see here, you have Poets and Writers Magazine, The Sun Magazine, Writer's Digest. Rather than going to every single one, I am going to highlight just a couple. And one in particular that I actually did not add to this list after I had already uploaded it. So To start with, though, we're going to go here. So this one is the community of literary magazines and presses. And the reason why I'm showing you this one, even though it is more directed towards publishers, like DSTL Arts, for example, I do pay the membership dues to be a part of this community. You know, there's certain resources that I'm able to get as a publisher. And if that's something that you're interested in becoming an independent publisher and potentially publishing on your own, you know, this resource right here might be a good one. Their membership structure, if you are able to pay for it, does give you access to like discounts on printers. It gives you discounts on like, you know, merchandising and also discounts on the website Submittable. Submittable, if you're not familiar with it, is a platform, a web platform that allows you to actually submit artwork and writing and other pieces to different, you know, literary magazines and presses and contests and things like that. I highly recommend having a Submittable account, so that way you can also be getting, you know, their regular newsletter that offers different, you know, awards and things like that, calls for submission and that kind of thing. The other reason why I'm showing you this website too, though, is because they have this directory of publishers. And if you go to the directory of publishers, you'll see that there's all sorts of different types of publishers that some of them do have like open calls. They'll take unsolicited manuscripts. There are other ones that actually tell you what they look for in a manuscript, and that type of thing. So if you want to start shopping a manuscript that you have prepared, this might be a really, really good resource for you to check out. And as you can see, you can look it up by genre. And so there's a few different genres there that you can choose from. So, are there any questions so far? I don't want to, like, you know, gloss over things, anything like that.
Did you say it's we have to pay membership? Is that what you said?
There is a membership if you want to become part of that community as a publisher. So if you're just an individual artist or writer that wants to learn about different publishers, that's a really good website to check out. And it was clmp.org. And that's if you have a manuscript that you're ready to shop, that you want to send off to different people.
CLMP?
Mm-hmm. So the .org.
Oh, .org.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Another one that I actually would recommend if you are in that situation where you're ready to start submitting work to different publishers is Poets and Writers. Poets and Writers is a magazine, you know, you might have seen it before. You know, they've made the transition to being also a very solid online, you know, tool that you can use. And the thing about Poets and Writers that is unique when compared to some of the other resources that I have on the handout, Poets and Writers also actually gives out mini grants to writers and artists that want to do workshops and readings. Last year in, I think it was like September, October, Caro and Nikolai and Janice and Richard, you know, all four of them received a mini grant with some help from DSTL Arts to actually have a reading. And, you know, the benefit of doing that is that you're, you know, working with a nonprofit, you're kind of beginning to establish a record of presentations, and you're getting paid. Their grants typically are about $100 to $150, and it would be for like a one-time event. So Poets and Writers is definitely one that you want to consider, especially if you're looking to do like a one-time workshop. The one thing about that is that you do have to work with a nonprofit or some other organization that can actually apply on your behalf. But the payment goes directly to you. So, you know, like in the case of the, you know, poets that presented through DSTL Arts Actually was Caro who wrote the grants. DSTL Arts, I just created the account, and then Caro pretty much did the rest of the work of writing the grants. I proofed them a little bit, made some minor corrections, and then submitted them on her behalf. And then after that, everything else was a direct payment to the poets. But aside from that, you have all sorts of tools on how to promote your writing, how to publish your writing. You can, find out about other readings and workshops. And there's definitely a lot of really good resources on here, such as writing prompts, and there's even a directory of like presses and agents and, places where you can submit something for review. So this is really a very, very solid resource for writers of all types, whether you're a poet, novelist, writing flash fiction, or doing even, like thrillers and that type of thing. Let's see. How do I feel about paid submission, like contests with submission fees? That's a really good question, Ani. Honestly, a lot of times, if you do end up submitting artwork or writing to places that have a submission fee, I would really recommend that you take a look at what it is that they do with the submission fee. A lot of those places usually are small presses, or they're run by a very small group of people that are dedicated in doing it as like a volunteer. And so if they're charging a submission fee, if they're using it to pay their staff, just kind of try to figure out like how big their staff is. If they're reputable, then a submission fee is probably, something that you can trust is not being like, kept by one single person. If it's a contest that is giving away prize money, most of the time the submission fee makes up a good portion of the prize money. But my rule of thumb is I never try to submit any work to a place that's going to charge me more than like $20 for a submission, because submission fees can get pretty high. I've seen some as high as like $50, $75. Granted, those are for people submitting artwork like visual art, so those kind of I can understand, but it's really kind of up to you to sort of do the research and whatever you're able to afford. There's also a lot of contests and stuff that don't charge anything, and most of the funding that they get is from either donations or grants. And like that's how DSTL Arts is able to publish things like our art block zine and artistic zine. Those I don't charge people to submit to either one of those zines, just like I don't charge you to submit to Conchas y Café. It's all paid through donations and grants and that type of thing. Let's see. Felicia is asking if you can access all the information without membership. If that's for the community of literary magazines and presses, there is like a limited amount of information that you can access without membership. But the reason why you would pay for a membership with the CLMP website is because you're setting yourself up as a publisher. So if you want to be a publisher, which I'll talk about a little bit, you might want to consider their most entry-level membership, which isn't very much. They have a membership level that's for zines and micro presses, and it's something like $50 a year. So it's relatively inexpensive, and you still get most of the benefits of being a member. Tina's question of it's an online magazine. If it's for poets and writers, Poets and Writers is also a magazine that's available in print. So you can get it both physically and also online. And if you subscribe, they'll probably offer both a print subscription and a digital subscription. Sometimes it's a good magazine to pick up for like, articles on writers being interviewed and, get insights that way. But more than anything, really like bookmark the website, because the website is a really good resource for contests, for artist residencies, agents, if you are in the market for finding an agent, if you want to look for a publisher, that does take unsolicited manuscripts, then you can do that too. MFA programs too. Yeah, thank you, Mauricio. MFA programs, take them with a grain of salt, just like getting a bachelor's degree, in creative writing. Like, just because you get the degree doesn't mean that your prospects are going to be any bigger. Especially if you go the master's route. But if you really feel like that's the direction you want to go in, for some schools and in some cases, it is a really good option. Like if you really do want to get a master's degree in creative writing, an MFA from a place like UC Irvine or the Iowa Writers Workshop, those are some of the two most prestigious schools for MFAs, and most people that go to those schools and graduate, a lot of times they'll leave with a manuscript that's ready to be submitted somewhere, and it's not that uncommon for those manuscripts to get published. UC Irvine was the first one that I mentioned. I got my master's degree, my MFA, from CalArts. And I can tell you, that particular program, it seemed like it was going to be the right program for me, but in the end, it really wasn't. See, the first one that I mentioned was UC Irvine, so that one's here, relatively local. And then the second one was the Iowa Writers Workshop. That one is definitely the most famous one and the most competitive one. That is the thing about the two that I mentioned. They're really competitive. They're not that easy to get into. They only accept like 12 people every year. So do keep that in mind. But there are, other programs like USC here locally. They do have a program that's, I think, an MFA program in creative writing. It's relatively new. There's also Otis, College of Art and Design. They have one here locally. You can even get an MFA in creative writing from Antioch. And that one is it's like a distance learning type of program. Half of the time, or actually most of the time, you're not in school, like at a physical campus. You only go a couple of times a month. Now that everything is virtual, you could probably get any MFA program done virtually too. So going back to the handout, the handout, like I said, has some other contests and resources here. There's the Writer's Digest is also a magazine that has a lot of the same information as Poets and Writers. The Sun magazine is a nonprofit magazine. They actually pay the people that they publish. So if you're looking to submit to a very high quality magazine, or you want to support a nonprofit press, the Sun magazine is definitely a good one. Most of the issues that I picked up in the past, I definitely enjoyed them. Their photography, they do take photography. Black and white photography specifically is always really lovely. But yeah, you want to definitely make sure that you're aligning your work to the type of themes that they're looking for, because being a small nonprofit press, they sometimes take a long time to get back to people, but when they do, it's because they really found something that connects with what the editor is looking for. These Facebook groups that are on here, like the paid publishing opportunities for writers or the no-fee calls for poems, these two, from the last time that I checked, they were public groups. So you don't even have to have a Facebook account, I believe, to see them. But just like with any other contest, you really want to make sure that you do the research, make sure that it is a legit contest and it's not people just trying to take your money. And the no-fee calls for poems, that one, you want to make sure that it's a legit press or somebody that is not going to try to claim copyright ownership forever over your work. which will limit how you're able to publish that work in the future. And of course, the LA Public Library is an excellent resource for you. They have the lapl.org collections section, and they have this one that's LAPL Rights. And that one in particular is going to give you a lot of different tools that you can use for helping you write. There's also links there where you can find out how you can have the library buy your books. You can also find resources there for how to get your books reviewed and a whole lot of other things. So the LA Public Library, you definitely want to check out this website as well. Now, if you're in the process of creating something and you're not quite sure, how you're going to fund it, that's what the grants and artist residencies resources are for here. Just today, actually, the California Arts Council, this first one right here, they opened up a new program of theirs in their funding. And that one is pretty exciting because it's been actually, if I remember right, it's something like 20 years since the last time that they actually gave out grants to individual artists. So this is the website. This is what it looks like. This is the programs tab. So if you go up here to grants, you'll find grant programs and applications. But this is the general programs tab. And they have different programs, which I think are also really valuable for you all to know. Like this one, the Administrators of Color Fellowship. This is a really cool fellowship for people that are working artists that want to basically learn how to become administrators in the nonprofit sector. There's also their Arts and Corrections program, their California Cultural Districts programs. These are really good things for you to be aware of. So that way you can find different places where you could either get a job as an artist, or maybe even submit to, like, say, become the California Poet Laureate at some point. But the main thing that you want to go to is to grants. Right? So if we go to the grants page, you'll see here that they have all sorts of different resources for people that want to apply to grants. And if you go under grant programs, you'll find here all of the explanation of the different types of programs and types of grants that they offer. So, this is like for, arts and cultural organizations, but this one in particular, the individual artist fellowships, right? This is a new one that they just opened up. And this one is for 3 different levels of artists. As you can see here, they have this new Emerging Artist Fellow award. It's a $5,000 grant, and they're hoping to give it to approximately 70 artists, right? And this is for people that have between 2 and 4 years of artistic practice. If you've been, publishing for longer than 4 years, you could actually go to the Established Artist Fellows grant, and you could potentially get up to $10,000 to work on a project. These are grants, and so there is a competitive edge to them. And if you've listened to me talk about grant writing in the past, the best grants, that, especially the ones that I've reviewed in the past, are grants that really know what they want. They're going to be very well structured, and at least financially, they're going to have a budget that makes a lot of sense. Like if you're planning on doing, say, a couple of workshops that will get you to work with the community, for example, in creating a zine or something like that, this is the type of grant that will probably get funded over a grant that is like, trying to elevate, like Western European art over other forms. The California Arts Council really does value the work of artists of color, especially, but more importantly, artists who are from underrepresented communities. So people who are from the LGBTQ community, people that are, part of the disabled community. These are very much the areas that they really hope to support. And I really am very thankful to the California Arts Council for funding DSTL Arts for now almost 6 years. It's a very, very, very gratifying thing to have them continually see the value in what we're doing here through Conchas y Café and everything. So it is actually very exciting to see them now begin to fund individual artists. And they also pay you if you want to become a grant reviewer, which is something that I recommend. The California Arts Council every year, there's people that have to review these grants. And if you're part of the community and you want to be, one of those grant reviewers, you can sort of get the behind the scenes idea of what it's like to read a grant, to see how a grant is dissected and, critiqued, and then ultimately scored and funded. And it never hurts to get paid to do stuff like that. Think of it as like a professional development experience that you're getting paid to do. There's also another, very important resource that's actually here locally, which is the Department of Cultural Affairs. So if you live or if you are doing programming in the city of LA, the Department of Cultural Affairs does have programs and funding opportunities for individual artists. Like right here, their City of LA Individual Artist Fellowship. And then they have also their Artist in Residence program. So those two programs are for individual artists. Just like with the California Arts Council ones, you want to make sure that you're reading the directions, that you're, presenting a project that has, some substance to it. It doesn't have to be finished, but, if there's at least a very clear idea of what you're trying to accomplish through your art project, then, these would be very good applications to consider submitting. There's also like things like this, right? This Arts Activation Fund. This one, for example, like it says, eligible for individuals. This is something where and you'll see these often through the city of LA. This is like an individual opportunity where you might be able to do say a pop-up workshop or a mural or, some kind of combination of that. Where you don't have to be directly working with another nonprofit or something like that. It's just something where the city of LA, as long as you're registered as a business, you can submit to this and they'll pay you for your services. So this is a very good resource to have in your back pocket. There's always something going on within the city of LA, especially that requires artists. And yeah. Does anyone have any questions so far? Anybody want anything that I haven't covered quite yet? Any lingering questions? No? All right. Well, let's continue on. Now, if you go through here on the grants and artist residency section, you'll also find the National Endowment for the Arts. I do have that website open, and we'll review it. But before we review that one, I want to draw your guys' attention to this one, the New York Foundation for the Arts. This one is a really, really good resource for you all to be aware of. Because let's say you want to apply for a grant through the city of LA, or even maybe in the case of the California Arts Council, if they're asking for insurance, which is a very strong possibility, just like they do with the National Endowment for the Arts. The NYFA, go to that website there. This one right here, the New York Foundation for the Arts, this is their classifieds page. Right? So this is where you can find, open calls for artist residencies, all sorts of different things. teaching fellowship, as you can see there. Yeah, this is more for like, their calls for submission. But if you go over here to their homepage, right, click on NYFA there, they'll highlight certain types of fellowships that they have and also trainings. So they have all sorts of different types of trainings that are available. Some of them are free, some of them are low cost. But these are really good resources for you to be aware of, along with the Center for Cultural Innovation. They also offer trainings and things like that for fellowship for artists. But here, when you go to programs and resources, they also offer fiscal sponsorship. Now, fiscal sponsorship is one of those things that for certain kinds of grants, you will need a fiscal sponsor that can actually accept the money on your behalf. I don't know if that's the case with the California Arts Council grants, in the case of like those individual artist grants, and I don't think that's the case either with the city of LA. But there are certain types of grants through like the California Arts Council, for example, that do require a fiscal sponsor. And so, not all fiscal sponsors accept individual artists, but the New York Foundation for the Arts does. And what a fiscal sponsorship does for you is it gives you a nonprofit organization and their infrastructure to be able to do all of the accounting, to be able to help you with the reporting on grants, and all sorts of other benefits, including things like insurance. If you need general liability insurance, a lot of times a fiscal sponsor can help you with that coverage. You can also get other types of individual insurance through, like your own means if that's something that you want to do. But I do recommend looking at fiscal sponsorship if you are interested in applying to a grant. It might help you to sort of have multiple sources of getting grants. The other one that I was going to share with you guys is the National Endowment for the Arts. And so the National Endowment for the Arts, this is a federal funder, right? So this is the federal government. This is what our tax dollars actually help fund. Here, they actually have one that might be of interest to all of you. So they have obviously their grants for organizations, but right now they have these grants for individuals, and they have two that are currently open. One of them is creative writing fellowships. So this is something that you can apply to actually help you basically do the work that you need to do to publish a manuscript. And if you're also thinking of doing like translation work, they also offer these, which are for projects in translation. Some of them, like in the case of this one, it'll be like the grant itself will require you to, explain why you think a work should be translated. They might also require some sort of like proof that you are capable of doing the translation. But like the creative writing fellowships one, they're pretty large grants. And they can definitely help with covering things like, as you can see here, time for writing, research, travel, and other general career advancement. So remember I was saying, right, NYFA offers workshops and things, and so does the Center for Cultural Innovation. This grant will actually help you pay for doing some of those workshops to help you advance your career. And you want to obviously make sure that you understand, by going to the program description, you want to make sure that you're eligible. You want to understand, what are the things that are funded and what are the things that are not funded. If anything falls under these categories right here, they definitely won't accept you. So it's one of those things where like once you get it, right, in this case, if you've received 2 or more of these fellowships, you can't get it anymore. So there's definitely that like It's great if you can get it. And keep in mind, they're very, very competitive. As you can see here, fewer than 3% of applicants are typically funded. But if you get it, that's a really big deal. And for your resume as a writer, that's going to be something that'll really help boost your career. So, any questions so far? Anything that caught your attention that you wanted me to clarify? All right. We'll continue on. Another one that is good for finding work, if you're in need of a job and you want to start, working in the nonprofit world, this one right here, the LA Culture Net listserv, is a really good listserv. This is just simply an email. You subscribe by email by sending an email to this website, to this email address right here. It's a Google group, so if you're on Google, you can, I believe, add different ways, or you can customize how often you get their emails. But if you're looking for jobs, this is definitely a good one, especially here for LA jobs. For example, today, the Center for Cultural Innovation used this listserv, to send out a job opening that they have for something related to their programs. A lot of times you'll see other small nonprofits that are similar to DSTL Arts also post jobs and other opportunities there. You'll even find calls for submission, and certain artist residencies sometimes get promoted there. But once you're on there, you can also use it as a way to promote your own workshops. If you want to start, putting together your own workshops and you want to charge people to attend them, I've seen people use this listserv as a way for, getting work that way. The Latinx in Publishing is also another good resource, since the majority of us in this workshop are of Latin American descent, Latinx. This is a good website to check out every now and then, because there's agents and Latino specific grants and residencies that they try to share there. It's relatively new. It's only a year and a half, maybe 2 years old now. So I don't know how often it's updated, but it is a good resource to go check out, especially for the agents. Because sometimes being a person of color means that you want to find an agent that really understands our work, and that's probably going to be the best way to find that. Now, let's say you do end up getting a grant, right? That's going to help you actually publish. You can always go the self-publishing route, which I talk about all the time. Zine making is definitely one of those things that I'm probably most known for. The last time that I taught this workshop, when I was teaching you guys how to properly budget for that, these were some of the resources that I think I had shared with you before. Now, Blurb is the one that I use personally for actually publishing the Conchas y Café artistic and art blog zines and all of the other chapbooks that have been done through the mentorship program. Blurb to me is probably the best one out of all of these different self-publishing or print-on-demand services. Let me see a question here from Felicia in the chat. What does the fiscal sponsor receive? Very good question. I actually forgot to mention that. If you decide to go with a fiscal sponsor, think of them like an agent. An agent is going to take a percentage of your sales. A fiscal sponsor will take a very small percentage of your grant. It's rare that they go over 3%. It's a pretty standard amount that a fiscal sponsor will take out of the grant funding that you get. And that's to help cover the cost of things like accounting, managing a bank account for you, and all of the other administrative tasks that are part of being a fiscal sponsor. If you're going to go with a fiscal sponsor that is charging more than 3%, really make sure that you know exactly what you're getting out of it too. Because if they're charging more than 3% and they're not giving you your own personal website or, access to exclusive professional development things, then, you may not want to consider them. But yeah, fiscal sponsors do charge for their service, but the benefits of having one in certain cases are a lot greater than trying to do it on your own. You might also want to consider going to like the Small Business Development Center. There's a lot here in LA. The LA Public Library also offers sometimes workshops on how to create a business. Ultimately, you really got to think of yourself as a business owner. If you're going to be an artist and a writer, that is your business, and there's a lot of different ways in which you can make money doing this as a business. And having a business plan is going to be one of those things that'll be really helpful. And for certain types of business ventures, like if you want to do workshops and that kind of thing, it could help to have somebody take a look at it and give you an idea of which direction to go in, what your fee structure should be. So a lot of the things that I've actually already covered. I ended up going to a small business development center before starting DSTL Arts to have them help me with creating the business plan for DSTL Arts. Because even though DSTL Arts is a 501c3 nonprofit, it's still a business. Whatever profits DSTL Arts makes go back to the community to help cover the programs, to even to pay myself. I don't get to pay myself very much, but at least it's enough for me to cover some basic expenses. But that's, the structure that I decided to go with, as opposed to being fiscally sponsored, because it just made more sense at the time. To answer Tina's question about Blurb being better than BookBaby, yes, I do think that Blurb is better than BookBaby. Seems like Ani probably agrees too. And to show you guys why, in particular, I like Blurb, let's take a look at their website. So here's Blurb. Blurb offers a lot of different resources that can help you as an artist, specifically their design tools here. If you go to Bookright under design tools, that's actually it's like an online version of Adobe InDesign. I use Adobe InDesign and I use Lightroom and Photoshop. The Lightroom plugin and the Photoshop plugin are for their photo books, so these that they have right here. But I use Adobe InDesign for basically everything else. Well, really everything. All of the books, chapbooks, and zines that DSTL Arts publishes, they're all created using Adobe InDesign. The thing about that is that I have to pay the $600 a year subscription to be able to have access to them. But if you don't want to pay the $600 a year to have access to all of those different programs, you can use Bookright. Bookright can actually be a pretty good tool. I've had to use it a couple of times when the InDesign plugin wasn't working. And the tools that Bookright can provide you online, that's I think one of the things that I like about it the most is that it's all on the web. So you don't have to, have like a fancy MacBook or anything. You just go to any, use any laptop and you have design tools there available to you. You can also do PDF to book conversions. So if you are using, like, say, Google Docs and you export your book in PDF format, you can use this particular tool right here to automatically convert it into a book. Keep in mind though, right, like, with anything that gets published, the way that it looks is going to be a reflection on, the quality of it, quote unquote. people see a book and will judge it by its cover. So you do want to consider using, tools that are, or at least images if you're going to be using photos and things like that. You want to make it look as best as it can. But they now have things like wall decor, so you can upload wall art and start selling posters and things like that. They also do ebooks, and you can sell and self-publish through here. So they can actually help you with creating your own bookstore. And then they also have a way for you to sell your work through Amazon and Ingram, which is kind of like a distribution network that includes pretty much any other bookseller, whether it be a small bookstore or Barnes and Noble. That's a way for them to distribute books physically. And then they also distribute through the iBooks store if you want to sell digital books, or ebooks as they're called. So this is a very, very good tool. You can set up your books and you can sell them at whatever price you want. It'll have the base cost, like whatever it costs to print them, and then whatever royalties you want to get off of your book, you just adjust it accordingly. So like if you want to make $5 off of every book that you sell, the book itself might be like $5 to print. You tack on that extra $5 and then you can sell it through the bookstore here, or through Amazon, Barnes and Noble, etc. Yeah, so that was Blurb. Now, speaking of things like wall art and other ways of making money, there's other tools too that you can use to sort of bring in a little bit of money. And one of those things that is on our handout, let me go back over here to our handout. You'll see here, right? Merchandising resources. Threadless is one of them. And I've talked about Threadless before. Threadless has a partnership with like Target, for example, and things that end up being popular on Threadless will sometimes be sold in Target as well. And the artist that submits their work, or that uploads their work to their artist shop, gets the same royalty. There's also this one called Spreadshop, which does basically the same thing as Threadless. The one benefit of Spreadshop over Threadless is that you get free graphic design software in the form of Vector. You can download it through Spreadshop. But let's take a look at them. So the first one we're going to look at is Threadless. So this is Threadless. This is what the artist shop page looks like. This is where you can sign up and start creating your work through Threadless. They basically tell you here how it works. Right? You just simply upload a design. You can do all sorts of different types of merchandise. You can customize your page here, and you can sell shirts and buttons and stickers, and they even do shoes, towels, home decor, all sorts of different types of things that you can actually have your work printed on. And the thing about them is, just like with Blurb, you have the base cost, right? So you have the basic cost of the materials, and then your profit. So like in this case right here, t-shirts and tanks, if you sell it at $25, it costs $15 for them to print and ship it for you, and then you get the remaining $10. This is pretty like you can find this in a lot of different places now. There's a lot of different services that offer this particular type of print-on-demand service. But the thing is that, like, this one in particular, the reason why I like Threadless is because they have that connection to Target, and you're able to actually get your work out there in a wider way than something like Spreadshop might, for for example. But that said, Spreadshop is also one of those services that I came across that I thought was really a good service. Now, very, very similar. These don't do that much different. There's not much different from Spreadshop and Threadless when you're really comparing them. But the thing about Spreadshop, like I said, is that if you go over here to their menu and you go to Toolbox, under Toolbox, you'll actually find all sorts of other resources that are free or low cost for you to be able to do the work of creating artwork. This right here, the Tayasui Sketches, is an app that you can use. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but it's an app that you can download and use to help you spread your to create your artwork. There's also like Canva. You can use Canva to create artwork and use like free images to create, I don't know, like little messages and that type of thing. And then here's Vector. Right, now Vector, the reason why you would be more interested in something like Vector is because this type of app, this is a vector-based app. It's called Vector, but vector-based apps means that it's a drawing software or app that when you expand and you resize your artwork, it's not going to get all pixelated. There might be like cases where you might have seen in the past something like like a photo or like a meme, right? That used a really grainy looking photo, a photo that looked all pixelated. That's because it was rasterized. But a vector, when it blows up, when it gets bigger or smaller, it doesn't lose its quality, its detail. A vector image is something that can very easily be turned into a poster and also into like a little postcard. And that's something that's really, really important in graphic design. And that's going to be something that you'll find beneficial if you want to, like, say, publish a book. If you want to design your own cover and you don't want to make it into something that's of a high quality, that's the type of software that you want to use. Now, because we're talking about like creating artwork and stuff like that, there's a lot of times, questions about that are related to things like copyright, and that kind of thing. Now, especially when it comes to books, and again, to give props to Blurb, I feel like they should be sponsoring me, I swear. But, Blurb allows you to use your own ISBN number, and, you using your own ISBN number, you'll be the publisher of record. BookBaby does allow you to do that, but, you have to actually pay extra for that. Otherwise, they'll charge you through them to use an ISBN number. But because BookBaby is owned by Amazon, Amazon will be the publisher of record. Now, Bowker, this is the only vendor that officially sells ISBN numbers. Now, I've mentioned this before when I've done this presentation before, but an ISBN number is something that you really want to consider using when you publish something, because it's kind of like the social security number for your books. This is what Bowker's website looks like. This is, again, the only website that you can go to actually register a book. And you can also use it as a way to copyright your books too. Now, the thing about their Copyrights Now and Copyrights Lock, these are services that they charge for that will mean you'll still have to pay for the copyright, for that whole process. But the ISBN number this is the only place where you can officially get your own ISBN numbers. And this is also a way for you to kind of set yourself up as a publisher. Let me actually sign in so you guys can see what it looks like. See if I got it right. always forgetting my passwords. Actually, yeah, let me go to the other web browser to show y'all. But anyways, so Bowker is the only place where you can actually, get your ISBN numbers. And if you ever decide that you want to publish something, with like BookBaby or something like that, you definitely want to make sure that you understand what you're getting into. If you have them do their ISBN numbers. So here I'm signed in. If we go to the DSTL Arts thing here, you'll see right here, when you go to the ISBN dashboard, you'll see all of the books that have been assigned an ISBN number. Now, let's go back to the very first one that DSTL Arts actually published with an ISBN number. So here you have Siniestro, once it loads. Siniestro was issue number 1 of way back in the day, volume 2 of Conchas y Café zine. And the information that you are able to assign to the ISBN number includes things like the cover image, you can write a description, and these are the things that people will see when they look up the book in, the what's it called, the like on the internet and that kind of thing. So you can have the bios, and you can show right here the format, right? It's a trade paperback. You can set the genres so that people can be able to sort it, and that kind of thing. You have the pricing, all of these different things that come up that you're able to assign with an ISBN. They show that it's DSTL Arts as the publisher. And the thing too about this is that buying a single ISBN, when you buy just one through the let's say BookBaby, they're going to charge you the $125 to buy the one. And then if you want to do like an ebook conversion, they may or may not offer you the ability to get a second ISBN number for the ebook version. So if you go here, you'll see, right, if you buy 10, it's $295. And then you can assign, one ISBN for the physical book, one ISBN for the ebook version, and so on and so on. If you do an audiobook has its own version of an ISBN too. So all of those things are the things that you need to understand when you're assigning ISBN numbers and doing any kind of project that's print-based. They do have, here, like why you should have one, how many you need, and, exactly why you buy it officially from Bowker. Database of the code number. If Abraham is talking about the reason to have an ISBN, yeah, I mean, it's basically a way for other publishers and libraries and things like that to be able to look up your books and all of your information as a publisher, which also ends up meaning you need to understand the importance of copyrights. All right, so here on the handout you have the direct link to the copyright website. Right, so this is the U.S. Copyright Office. It's really simple, copyright.gov. Now, a lot of times I get asked, are you guys able to print your work, or submit it to other places? When all of you signed up to be a part of Conchas y Café or any of the DSTL Arts programs, on the application, there's this last page. Let me zoom out here a little bit. All right, this last page should look familiar. Right, you have the medical release, and down here you have the photo, video, and radio footage permission. So that's like for marketing and that type of thing. But if you look at this one in particular, right, the informed consent and license agreement, this is really, really important for you to understand. A licensing agreement is an agreement between you and, in this case, DSTL Arts. And it says, that DSTL Arts has the ability to reproduce your work, including in any form, in a variety of forms, including any forthcoming books, magazines, art journals, posters, or anything else associated with DSTL Arts. Right? Now, the licensing agreement that you have with DSTL Arts does say that, you're giving me permission to edit and publish the work as I see fit. Now that does mean, right, that you're giving me permission to edit, but that you ultimately are trusting that I'm not going to completely change your work. But it also means here that you guys understand that DSTL Arts is a nonprofit, and I won't be able to pay you for the work outside of you getting your free copy of the zine. No, Abraham, DSTL Arts does not have your soul. But what that licensing agreement says is that you're licensing the work to me, right? That's really, really important to understand. It's a license. It's not a full copyright. You still own your work. For those that have published through the mentorship program, there was a different publishing agreement that I gave you. That particular publishing agreement says that you're letting DSTL Arts publish your work for a period of 3 years, and then it goes right back to you and it goes out of print. And during those 3 years, you have the right to still submit your work to be, optioned as say a movie, or it can be used, portions of it can be used in audio or in TV, that kind of thing. Licensing agreements are normally going to have those kinds of agreements that allow you to still use the work in other areas, but one particular area, it might be reserved. In the case of copywriting your work, a copyright, what it does is it basically officially makes you the owner of your work. So your rights as the author, are forever yours, and you can then legally transfer it to someone else in the future. That's why it's beneficial to copyright your work. If you go to the copyright website, you'll see here, there's all sorts of information about, what fair use is, and what copywriting does, and all of that stuff. Right? So here you got copyright law and all that kind of thing. Now, if you actually want to register a document, right? So you can record a document, but you can register a copyright. When you go to the registration portal, you'll see, the different fees that are, associated with different types of copyrights. They have a copyright that's specific to literary works. Then there's a copyright that's specific to performing arts works, visual art. You can do photographs and that kind of thing, and even digital content, as you see here. Now, if we go to literary works, here, they'll tell you right here, right? You may register up to 10 unpublished works on the same application. You can register individual poems, but you can also register collections of poems as books. And so, it gets a little complicated when we're talking about how you're going to copyright something. As you can see here, works commonly registered in this category. They'll include things like blogs, which, would be registered as a whole, as an aggregate collection, right? There's all sorts of different ways, and I really recommend that you sit through this and go through all of the different resources that they have on here, so you very much understand what you're copywriting, what that means for you, and also what the benefits are of grouping works together as opposed to doing individual one-by-one poems, and that kind of thing. But again, the reason why you would copyright something is because you want to protect your artwork, and you want to have the ability to pass it on to someone else in the future. So we're talking about your legacy, right? Legally, your copyright will actually remain under your name up until the day you pass away, and an additional, I think it was like 25 years, right? So 25 years past your date of being officially considered dead, right? For 25 years, you will then be able to pass on, like your work remains yours, right? And then your estate, so your kids, your partner, whoever, that you pass it on to, that they will still be able to control the copyright. After that, it has to be re-registered every, I think it's 10 years or 15 years, depending on what it is that was copyrighted. Let's see, what are you guys saying over here in the chat? Eugenio Derbez. Yeah, Abraham is Eugenio Derbez. Yeah, I could definitely see that. Let's see. So would the same go for short stories? Yeah, the same. It's basically the same principle for short stories about grouping them together versus doing them one by one. Basically, any kind of literary work. If it's like, say, an essay, a single essay could be copywritten, but a collection of essays could be copywritten. That's why it's really important that you go to that website and you really read what it says. Don't just skim. Like, very much go in detail and take your time and understand what are the benefits of copywriting individual works versus groups of works, because it costs money to copyright something. If I remember right, it's like $25 for every book that you copyright. And it's different if it's a poetry book versus a book that's like a novel. There are price differences based on the number of pages, if I remember right. Let's see, the difference between registering with WGA and copyright. So there's a difference between registering something like an intellectual property versus copywriting. So I'm sure you've all seen it before. There's that little like R in a circle. It's like something that you would normally see, like say on a logo or on or like trademark, right? The TM in a circle. Registered works and trademarked works are normally for like an idea, like a phrase can be trademarked, right? Like have it your way, right? Burger King trademarked "Have It Your Way," so that no one else can use that phrase in their marketing materials. A logo can be copywritten and it can be registered. It's copywritten by the owner of it, right? So the artist that created like the Burger King logo, that artist owns the copyright to it, unless if they were hired and that's like another whole thing about how you contract an artist. But the artist that created the logo, let's just say, they actually own the copyright, and then they licensed it to Burger King. Now Burger King can take that and trademark it so that it's the logo that is associated with Burger King as a brand. So there's different ways of understanding how something, when it's registered, when it's trademarked, and when it's copywritten. I hope that kind of answers your question, Felicia. But basically think of it like this. A copyright is something that can be passed on to your estate, right? When a work is registered, it just simply says that it's a limited use, right? Only certain people can use it in certain contexts, and something that's trademarked is probably going to be owned by a corporation, and it's also going to be something that is like an idea, not an intellectual property. like a phrase can be trademarked, like I said, but a work of art can't. I hope that kind of makes sense. That's like a whole other lesson, and I've actually gone to trainings that tried to break that down, and I'm trying to actually create a workshop where I can teach that. But yes, think of it as intellectual property. This all is talking about your artwork as intellectual property. Abraham is asking, what is the difference with school books because they are really expensive? Well, school books tend to be expensive because they're very, specific to one market. They're not something that's going to be sold by a publisher at every bookstore. And a lot of times, things like school books. What else? Certain kinds of marketing materials like logos. A lot of times a graphic designer or somebody's going to be contracted for the job, and they'll be paid just for the job. And so the intellectual property that results from that is owned by the corporation that contracted that person. So like the Target logo, probably the Target logo was done by a graphic designer that was paid to do it by Target, the corporation. So Target, the corporation, actually owns the intellectual property, probably because the contract that the graphic designer signed was a work for hire contract. So any work that was produced by the graphic designer while they were employed by Target is owned by Target, not by the graphic designer. That's where things like licensing agreements are really, really important to understand. If you're getting a licensing agreement from an employer, it means that you still own the copyright of the work that you create. So you would probably be a contracted employee as opposed to a staff member. You're probably not actually on their payroll in a way where you're paying taxes and stuff like that out of your paychecks. Yeah, kind of like what Mauricio was saying in the chat, similar to the relationship with the ghostwriter and their employer. Same basic concept. Cool. Yeah, Mauricio has an example of a certificate of registration. Good job, bro. Let me see. The employer will be the official author of the work, even if you wrote it. Yeah, exactly. Just like Mauricio said in the chat, the employer would be the official author. Kind of like how Amazon would be the official publisher if you publish through BookBaby, even if you wrote the work. So, yeah, I think I covered everything. Let's take a quick look back over at our handouts just to make sure. Yeah, that's pretty much everything. The last thing that I had to share with you guys was the payment processing. So let's say that you've gone through the whole process of creating your own merchandise using Threadless. Threadless is, they charge and they ship on your behalf. You just get paid by them. Blurb, same thing. They charge and ship on your behalf if a person buys from Amazon or Barnes & Noble or whatever. But let's say you want copies of the book, right? Let's say you order like 50 copies. You actually have those 50 copies. Let's say you order a bundle of tote bags, and you're going to take your tote bags and you're going to take your books and you're going to go to like the Festival of Books, the LA Times Festival of Books, right? Nowadays, you got things like Venmo, PayPal has been around forever. But the one thing that, especially if you really do think of yourself as an employer, as a business, you're going to want to have some sort of credit card processing service. Now, that's whether you have a website, whether you're doing transactions in person, to be able to take credit cards and not have to rely on people, using Venmo to give you money that way. Or even if you're taking cash, the old-fashioned way. right? You need to have some sort of inventory system and some sort of credit card processing system. And, I love Square. Square has been with DSTL Arts since day one, pretty much. And if you sign up for Square through this particular website, the one that's on the handout, you'll see here, DSTL Arts invites you to try Square, right? If you sign up and you start doing actual, credit card transactions within your first 180 days, Square will give you up to $1,000 in transactions. And it's not very expensive. It's actually very competitive for every credit card transaction that you do in person. Now, the really cool thing about Square is that you also get a free website. Square websites, actually, like the DSTL Arts website, is a Square website that's handled through Weebly. The integration of Weebly and Square is pretty seamless. You can take orders online. You can do all sorts of really cool things, like having your blog online. You can even now set it up so that you can do curbside pickup using Square, and all of these really cool features that will help you as a business owner. And the way that you, like, say, pay your taxes, all of those things are all integrated into Square's platform, and you don't have to be going to different websites and use different subscription services like QuickBooks to help you keep track of your inventory and to make payments and to charge people, through like an invoice, that kind of thing. Square has it all set up pretty easily for you. And let's be real. If you sign up through the DSTL Arts link, DSTL Arts also gets free credit card processing for up to $1,000. So, it's like a win-win, though, honestly. And yeah, that pretty much wraps it up. I know I covered a lot, and being a business owner, if you're gonna take your art as a career, it does require a lot of work. I've had many weeks and months where I've slept very little, doing all of the work that goes into running DSTL Arts, and also trying to be an active poet artist myself. But these are some of the tools that I've found along the way. The reason why I'm recommending them is because I've used them and I've had very much success with them. And I'm always happy to share ideas and things that I've done, techniques that I've used to make my job as an executive director for DSTL Arts easy. And a lot of them are the same things that would make my job as an individual artist easy too. So, you guys ever have questions in the future, something you didn't think of now, you're definitely welcome to ask it. And I really encourage you to use the Google Classroom to ask it, because if you had that question, there's more than likely a chance that someone else in the class had it too. But that said, does anybody have any questions for me right now? Anything that you are curious about that I might be able to answer right now? Miss Luz wants her soul back. I don't have your guys' soul, honestly. You guys still own the rights to your work. You guys just licensed it to me. So anything that comes out in the Conchas y Café zines, it's still your work. It is in a collection that is going to be published for however long I decide to continue publishing them. But you guys can take the work that you've written through the Conchas y Café workshops and actually submit it to other magazines and other presses. If you want to eventually turn it into a book, you can still publish it and do it that way. Ani's asking if I'm still offering the mentorship program. Yeah, the mentorship program is still active. It's kind of on a pause right now just because of the way that COVID has impacted our programs. And I am actually sort of trying to restructure the mentorship program. I'm working on the budget now to start applying to grants to be able to continue providing the mentorship program. But just so you guys know, the name of the mentorship program is going to change. It's not going to be called the Arts Mentorship Program anymore. Beginning this year, I'm going to be calling it the Poet Artist Development Program. So I'll be, helping y'all develop as poet artists as opposed to just simply mentoring you guys as poet artists. Let's see, Mauricio is asking, what would I recommend for having just a large amount of poems that I like to copyright but aren't in the collection of poetry yet? I don't know, man. I don't really have a recommendation that I feel I can make without really going to the copyright website. But I can almost guarantee you that it'll be a lot easier to copyright your poetry as a collection of poems as opposed to doing them as individual poems. If it means kind of loosely putting together a manuscript, that might be the easiest way to do it, but I really don't know. I really recommend you check out the copyright.gov website to figure out what is your best option. Sanfanita's asking, if you publish it elsewhere, are you letting us know? Yeah, if I publish anything in Conchas y Café zines and I were to publish it for whatever reason somewhere else, I would definitely let you know. But the truth is that I don't publish anything else outside of the zines that I produce. If your work appears in anything, it would probably be on the DSTL Arts website, or maybe as like a little quote on the social media page to help promote the programs. But even then, to date, I've never done that. But that would be the only other use of your work outside of being published in the Conchas y Café zine or any of the other zines. And of course, with attribution. So you guys would get credit. I would never publish or post something that you wrote and say that it was mine. That's just not how I roll.
I have a question, Luis.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're a publisher. So if someone wanted to do like a separate, like their own thing, you could publish. They would pay you, but you could publish their work. It'd be published by Distilled Arts, like a solo project or something like that.
Technically, yes. However, that's not how our programs are structured. So, and I've had people ask me that before, where like they have a book that they're trying to put out, but they haven't found a publisher. All the people that I publish through the mentorship program or through the zines. And if a person wants to go through the mentorship program and complete the program, that's how I'll publish them. But really, it's because I want to make sure that it's of the highest quality. And really that it's, a person from our community, a community that is underrepresented or underserved. Yeah. Hope that answers the question.
No, I'm just kidding. Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions? No? Yeah. Mauricio's asking if you guys made your own zines and you wanted to donate them to me so that DSTL Arts can sell them. Yeah, I'm more than happy to do that. I'd obviously would want to share the profits with you, but yeah, that's always an option. And in the future, when the Mobile Art Lab is finally able to go to events and that kind of thing, I do hope to eventually create a consignment agreement where you guys would be able to consign any zines and things like that you create, so that DSTL Arts can sell them on your behalf and you get your percentage. So I'd want to operate the mobile art lab like a bookstore does. That's always an option too, if you decide to, create your own merchandise or your own books. If you go to small bookstores and other stores that sell books and merchandise, that's pretty normal. You can always consign work that way. So they sell it for you. They might have it for a few months, and then they'll return it to you, and then whatever profits you make based on your agreement, they'll pay you, and then they'll keep their percentage. It's pretty standard to see like a 60-40 split, where you get 60%, they keep 40%.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything's like virtual on, like there's all these ebooks and stuff. Are you gonna do an e-zine or
Technically, yes. Technically, all of the zines are available as a digital download for people that have subscribed. So yeah, DSTL Arts sells subscriptions to all of our zines. Yeah. Thank you for asking that, Jess. So yeah. Yeah, I believe you all received the PDF last time. I uploaded it as a PDF to the Conchas y Café workshop, or the Google Classroom, I mean. But yes, it's a free download for you. All right. So we're a little bit past 8 now. Do I have experience with Patreon? I haven't used Patreon myself. Yeah, there's a little bit of an information overload tonight. But things like Patreon, Kickstarter, GoFundMe, they're good resources for crowdfunding. Patreon as a way to kind of create your own little fan base. That's also a really good platform. I definitely look into those as ways to crowdfund your work. Just like, GoFundMe takes a percentage, Kickstarter takes a percentage of transactions. I'm sure Patreon takes a percentage of transactions. It's basically the same as if you were fundraising through Square, which Square does offer fundraising features now too, which that's something brand new that they just came out with. Pretty much any crowdfunding platform, any platform that requires people to use a credit card is going to take a percentage, because there's administrative fees, just like a fiscal sponsor. There's always going to be some sort of administrative fee. So just find the one that works for you, and the one that makes your marketing easy. Subscribers to DSTL Arts, how are those subscriptions managed? Offered any special app? Just internal bookkeeping? So the subscribers to the DSTL Arts zines are, again, I use Square. Square is my main tool for invoices and for keeping track of merchandise. It's also, at least in my case, beneficial to have a Dropbox subscription, because Dropbox, the business version that I have for DSTL Arts, it allows me to give limited access to our digital zines, so people can download it anytime that they want, and they can view the PDFs that way. And I also use Submittable as a way for people to buy the subscriptions while they're also submitting their artwork to Artblock or Artistic Zine. For you guys, in your case, Conchas y Café zine is exclusive to people that go through the workshop. Not anybody can submit to Conchas y Café zine, but you guys get the zine now digitally, as well as the physical copies. I hope that answered that question. In terms of bookkeeping, like keeping track of all of the expenses and the revenues that DSTL Arts has, I basically created just a Google spreadsheet that helps me keep track. And I try to be good about every month or every other month, just putting in all the different expenses. I shared that last time, I believe.
My question, just to clarify, was that it's when they're subscribing to so many issues,
Yeah.
and then you have to keep track of like, oh, we had another zine come out, and make sure I send it to this person, that person, or like that, or
that's where Dropbox helps me. Yeah. So Dropbox.
Thank you so much for this. It's really good.
Yeah, no problem. But yeah, Dropbox notifies the subscribers when a new zine is up, and they're, like I said, given limited access to the zines throughout the year. And then the zines themselves, the Conchas y Café zines, they'll be available for purchase at $10 each. To answer Felicia's question there. And yeah, hope that's it. Again, if you guys have any questions that you couldn't think of right now that pop up later, feel free to use the Google Classroom. That's what it's there for. Post your question on the stream so that everybody can see it, and then that way, everyone has access to the answer. And then, I'm always available to you guys through email or Google Classroom. Y'all can always ask questions that way. It's probably easier by email than it is by texting me or calling me sometimes. So, because the answer might be kind of a long one, so just email it. And yeah, I think that's it. last question. The new sessions of Conchas y Café will begin in February. I'll let y'all know. Yes, I got all pieces.
I have one question.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. Actually, I was gonna say maybe I'll email. What about like when you see merchandise with Bible verses or quotes or saying? What? Because I don't know. Because of the intellectual rights and all that, do those follow that same thing?
Yes.
Can you sell merchandise with like a Bible verse?
Yes, but yeah, and that's where you really want to make sure that you're using things that are fair use. So things that basically are no longer protected by someone's copyright.
I mean, they've been there for like what?
Yeah, a Bible verse is a Bible verse. Like that's considered fair use. But
I see them in a lot of places, and
yeah, quotes. It really depends on the quote. If it's basically the best rule of thumb is if it's 100 years old or older, then it's probably considered, public domain at this point, and it's no longer protected by copyright. So you're probably okay with using it. But if you're ever in doubt, just check. Just, simple Google searches should be able to help with that. Yeah, you can always attribute like
Shakespearean quotes then.
Yeah, I mean Shakespeare is in public domain.
I was thinking more about Bible verses. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, and the Bible is it's public domain, so anybody can publish it. Anybody can use verses from it in merchandise or anything.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All right. So as Mauricio said in the chat, don't believe everything you read on the internet. Abraham Lincoln. For Edwis, yeah, the final pieces for Edwis, I'll be getting back to you guys. Just been a little busy doing some grant writing, so yeah. But everything that I've received for Conchas y Café and Edwis, it's all looking good from the quick things that I've seen so far. I appreciate you guys submitting your work. Those of you that did it this week before the official due date, I appreciate that. Those of you that are going to take advantage of my very mini extension for tomorrow, thank you as well for just being on top of it. Yes, you'll be able to invite people to the party. I'll be giving you all that information in the coming week. Yes, you can still submit images, and just make sure that it's in a JPEG format, no PDFs for images. That'll help me make sure that it comes out well. Just email me the image and tell me which piece it goes with. All right. Okay. So final question, guys. That's it. I'm ready to have dinner. I hope y'all already have dinner. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next week with another lesson.